Welcome to Modern Mondays here at the Wasteland. I'm Brad Van Slyke, and joining me in the booth,
Nathan Satterfield.
all right, what we got for us today?
We've got two interesting decks here. One, the green splash on the classic twin deck with Tarmogoyfs.
Tarmo Twin,
yep.
Rug Twin, Teamer Twin, however you want to call it.
Many names, but all the same thing. And then the other side of the coin here, we have Joe playing Gift Storm, which is very interesting. Should be blue-red twin, or like a blue-red shell with the Pyromancer's Ascension Storm action going on, but he's apparently playing Gifts Ungiven. So this is a list I'm not familiar with. Should be interesting to watch it work.
So my guess is he's using the gifts to make sure that Pyromancer's Ascension gets online super quick. Because once again, Pyromancer's Ascension gets the counters when you cast something that's also in your graveyard.
Yeah, if you just go get like 4 things that you already have a copy of in your graveyard and you have an Ascension on the field, it can be really, really nice from there. You're basically using your entire turn to set up. It can cost 3 if he has Electromancer out. We'll see what sort of cards he is actually playing, though, because I'm not sure what exactly you have to get rid of to make room for those gifts, because that is a very tight list already.
Yeah. You have the perfect balance of rituals and draw spells, and then, of course, your grape shots and your storm cards to win.
Absolutely. I don't think you can cut any of the storm cards. Perhaps you can, like, trim maybe 1, because you can gifts for it, and then from there, potentially set up all the things you need by finding the Past in Flames with one of the win conditions, something like that.
Yeah, because if you look at a lot of the Legacy Storm lists, they only run the 1 copy of Grape Shot.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the just straight blue-black.
Oh, yeah, Tendrils. Sorry. Yeah, Tendrils is the more...
certainly the more popular
one.
Not necessarily the only choice. There is the Grixis version, which can pull out the red mana for the Past in Flames, namely.
Mm-hmm.
But also it can let you go off with different storm cards. So the Shivan Reef has got to be a signal to Vince that something's up. This is not a typical blue-red deck. Shivan Reef is not one that you see normally. And then Steam Vents, of course, is not really a signal for anything. It could be a lot of decks. Could be Grixis, could be straight blue-red, could be
just classic
Teamer.
twin.
Yeah, it could be Teamer. Could be America. We've seen blue-white-red decks before. JD Umberson, one of the more popular choices for our feature match area. He plays a Geist Tempo deck that also is white-blue-red.
There's a bit of a...
Interesting that he hasn't played any cantrips yet. I'm not sure what his hand could be like. Maybe he's just got a gifts and he's waiting to fire it off.
Crack a Fetch. Yeah, and with some of the new cards coming out, a lot of other color archetypes are starting to see some more play, or just the meta's changing. I know there's been an upsurge in Bant in Modern. We haven't had too many on stream, but there's been a lot of talk around the store.
The local metagame is very, very aggressive. A lot of people like to play their favorite take on aggressive strategies. There's Infect, there's Affinity, there's straight up Burn.
Yeah, we had Naya Burn last week.
And then there's just like good old fashioned creature beatdown decks. There's not a whole lot of them, but there are some. There's definitely some.
Looks like we're gonna see a click here.
Yeah, so Vendilion Click for Vince. Looks like he's targeting Joe.
Manamorphase.
Lots of interesting goodies here. He
There's
immediately singles out the Gifts Ungiven. That's an interesting one to look at. From here, I like getting rid of the Ascension because it's much harder to go off if you don't have it. He's also got 2 copies of one of the rituals. Yeah, I mean, if you don't take the gifts, then he can essentially restock, but it will take longer. He should draw here and draw the replacement. Looks like he's just going to leave those up for us. That's really nice. There's a Serum Visions start things off.
That would be the hidden card in his hand.
So there's... looks like he bottomed an Ascension. That's very interesting. Maybe he drew one. Oh, right off the top. Wow.
Yeah.
Just obviously drew one. Well, that's just variance for you, folks. There were 2 more in his top 3.
But at the same time, had he not bottomed the 1, having the 2 copies of Ascension in play makes the deck go off so much faster and so much more consistent.
That's true.
Because 2 Manamorph phases is nice, but 3 is excellent.
Yeah, when you're ancestral recalling and making mana when you're doing it, it's really gross.
We make like 6 mana.
It is like a win more scenario, but it is still very, very powerful and nothing to mess with for sure. So he's starting off the mana train here. Here's a ritual. Decision time for Vincent Lansford.
There's our storm count.
All right, so Storm's at 2. 2 spells cast this turn. Him going off through a counterspell would be impressive, to say the least. Hey, look, it's another ritual.
There's a ritual. We'll get a counter on the Ascension.
Yeah, he's going to trigger the Pyromancer's Ascension.
And it's 2 counters for it to go online.
Yes, once it has 2 counters, you start getting copies of things.
Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get a copy of it on the stack.
And there's a Spell Pierce. So Storm's up to 4, but he's got no mana, so the turn's over. Assuming he doesn't have a land, which he doesn't. That's a reasonable turn for Joe. He cleared 2 counterspells out of Vince's hand. He's still got a Gifts waiting in the wings.
We had a lot of Pain Land activations there, getting our life total updates from good old Jeff out in the field.
Yeah. Should just be... No, maybe he tapped them in an interesting manner.
I believe he fetched for the shock.
Oh, he took a hit from the Vendilion Click.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so he did have to activate it once to cast a second ritual, but yeah, so a fetch, an activation, and now 2 hits from Click should have him at 12. And Hinterland Harbor from Vince. I'm a big fan of those buddy lands.
Check lands, as we like to call them.
Yeah.
The enemy cycle came back in Innistrad. The allied cycle had been reprinted from like M10 all the way through M13.
Yeah, many printings. I think they took 1 year off in there.
Yeah, I know it was through M12.
Yeah. Like, I think they either took M11 or M12 off and then came back because they've been printed 3 times in core sets.
Okay. Yeah, I remember when I was first getting into Magic, I was trying to grab some lands and it was like, oh, M11 editions are $2 cheaper. Oh, okay. Sure.
So Cryptic Command to bounce is a nice one, and then here is a remand on the Gifts. Looks like Vince is just going to play the good old tempo beatdown game.
We have quite the showing for our modern event tonight. Last count I got was 38, but I believe a couple more people showed up after that.
Yeah, I think we're upwards of 40 at the moment. Really, really good turnout. I'm both happy and surprised at the same time, I would say. It's like a shock from Vince. He's going to play Steam Vents untapped here.
Click, just getting in for the numbers, man.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's all he really needs to do. He's got a good hand for this sort of game. Joe's a little bit stalled on mana. And
is that Faithless Looting or Desperate Raving?
That's Faithless Looting.
Ah, Desperate Raving's the one at random.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read Finkel's Storm article? He wrote like a beautiful 2-page article about how to actually play Storm, since it's one of the decks he's most known for.
Was it immediately after the most recent Modern Pro Tour?
Yeah, where he did pretty well with it.
It's been a while, but I did read it.
He has an excellent point about how you should never play Faithless over Desperate.
So here's an interesting play. Electrolyze into Snapcaster Spell Snare on the Pyromancer's Ascension.
Ooh.
This is a good play. So I think Joe's at 4 now?
He's at 3.
3. Oh, he activated the Pain Lane, of course. And then that'll be the game. Interesting. Sorry to stop you there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a wonderful article. Desperate Ravings, it's draw 2, discard 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's draw 2, discard 1 at random.
Yes.
Whereas Faithless Looting is draw 2, discard 2. So inherently, the Faithless is actually card disadvantage. You are spending a card to draw 2, discard 2.
Yep.
And one of the points of the article that always stands out for me is they say, you can't be, Sound of Heart or you have to go for it. And it's like playing the other one is like you have a weak heart and no weak hearts can play Storm. And you're just like, oh, okay, Finkel, you got it, man.
His iron will is what makes him one of the greats. One of his philosophies about playing is that you have to get lucky to win. And I think a lot of the greats know that. So they play in such a way that getting lucky, they get rewarded. And oftentimes that means making the sort of plays that they give your opponent as few turns as possible to draw out of whatever scenario you're trying to set up for them. So being as aggressive as possible is typically where Finkel finds himself. And it's hard to be as aggressive as possible in a combo deck because you're so conditioned to wait until the last possible turn. But sometimes you just gotta go for it. You can't let your opponent set up for a million turns and then sculpt a hand that can beat you on the turn that you go off. You just have to get in there.
Yeah, there's a big philosophy of like if they have it, then they have it. But that's not to say fire it off all the time always. You have to play around it, but there comes a point where, well, I'm not in a better position. I'm not in a worse position.
A lot of the time they'll like tap out on turn 2 to do something, and you could wait 2 turns and probably kill them with a grape shot. But it's just right to make like 8 goblins.
Okay, so we have
just make 8 goblins.
We have some interesting sideboards coming in from our spotter on the field.
Yeah.
Vince is siding in some negates and dispels,
Those
classic
very,
against
very
Storm.
yeah.
However, Joe is siding in a defense grid and an Umburial Rights Elish Norn package. Just if you're playing gifts, sure.
You remember those flooded strands?
Oh,
He's probably got.
I just thought they were there because they're cheaper than Scalding Tarns.
I'm sure he's got the set of Tarns in there too. But
absolutely.
Also playing the flooded strands gives you access to flashback mana. Yeah. I didn't put 2 and 2 together there, but I knew there was a specific reason why he was playing those.
Some people like to play the off, well, not necessarily off color, but 1 color fetches just to crank up their fetch count by 1. It's not uncommon to see 4 of the fetch you have both colors for, and then 1 extra one just in case.
Several years back, Owen Turtenwald, when playing Rug Delver in Legacy, opted to run a 1 of Wooded Foothills in the deck because your opponents are far less likely to play around Stifle when they see a leaded, like a turn 1 lead Wooded Foothills, because that doesn't get a blue land on the surface of things. But of course in Legacy, a fetch land can get anything. So you have to play around all the things. But it was just interesting to see that he had cut one of the, typically you play the Misties and the Scowling Tarns because
those are your fetches.
Yeah, but Wooded Foothills is just as good in the deck. Yeah. It gets all the same things, and it doesn't actually telegraph blue mana. So people were less likely to play around Stifle, which is very, very interesting. So there's a lot of head games you can play when fetch lands are in the format.
Stifle is one of my all-time favorite cards.
It's no fun.
It's the most fun. I have never cast Stifle and not been immediately glad I did it. Even on silly things. I believe my favorite Stifle is I stifled a Dirtle Turtle one time.
Oh god.
Because someone had Wandering Tower Shell in their commander deck and wanted to flicker it. I was just like, I got nothing else to do.
Yeah, no thanks.
No thanks. He stays on the board. I made your card better, right?
I am a big fan of any of those Stifle effects on Planeswalker Ultimates.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna lose all of those loyalty counters and nothing doing. Sure, Jace me? No thanks. No. He's at 1 now. Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. Or it's like, oh, you're gonna -8 your Cameo to get an emblem.
Exactly.
Well, no, she's just in the yard.
Yeah. So we got both on 7 here. Joe obviously on the play. We'll see if he has the turn 2 defense grid. It'd be interesting. I have not seen a Goblin Electromancer from him, so I'm just going to assume that is not an option. We could see him set up for something pretty early here. I think if he had Ritual, and Goblins, I would have totally just pulled the trigger. Just make 6 Goblins.
Go.
Yeah, just twin Unless the next play from Vince is Tarmogoyf, like you're just gonna kill him in 3 turns. It's great. I'm a big fan of pulling the trigger early before your opponent has any chance to set up.
Yeah. That's one of the, so like there's always we were talking earlier, when you fire off the combo decks, like, because either combo decks will fire it off as soon as they can, hoping they don't have the answer, or they'll fire it off when they think the time is right. When you can fire it with backup.
Yep.
Which is always interesting because High Tide is the deck that wants to wait as long as possible, because the longer it waits, there's a Hollowed Fountain.
The Hollowed Fountain we were talking about, alluding to earlier. Yeah, High Tide does want to wait. The extra land drop is huge for them. That's all they want to do until turn 4 or 5.
Plus, the longer they wait, the more lands they have, the more just raw counter spells they draw. So that the longer they wait, the safer it gets. But sometimes you see High Tide players wait too long.
Yeah, you can't wait too long.
Yeah. So it's interesting because it's kind of the reverse of the norm.
True.
Plus, if you love math, High Tide is the deck for you.
I played against, I think it was 4 years ago, one of the first Legacy GPs that I'd ever... It was definitely my first
The one in Atlanta?
The one in Atlanta.
Oh.
I played against 3 High Tide players that day.
I actually had a friend playing High Tide at that event. I wonder if it was him.
And I probably played him because I played 3 people. No, it was an immensely popular deck for the tournament. Once I took a draw against one of them, I was surrounded by them. They were just everywhere. They were everywhere in the draw bracket. But one of the people that I had played against that day was very well prepared and had his own spreadsheet for counting mana, counting spells, counting storm, all of the things that he, like what the tide was at, how much islands tap for. It was fantastic. It was so good.
So much math. It's always funny playing against High Tide because they'll be like, okay, and you'll see them doing calculations. They'll have usually pen and paper to do the math because you got to do math on the fly. And then wait, how many cards in your library? And you're like, 45. They're oh, never mind, you're dead. And you're like, well, wait, what?
Yeah, right. Oh, here's a Tarmogoyf from Vince. First piece of action so far. Looks like he's representing Remand. If I'm Joe.
He's got a Tarmo dice.
He's just gonna bolt it.
Wait, did he really just make this play? Okay, hang on, he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a land, so it's a 1/2. It would be a 2/3.
It will go up to a 2/3, then state-based actions.
There's nothing Vince can do to grow it in response. Yeah, so he's just going to counter it. Yeah. And I'm sure Joe is so very okay with that. Oh, he brought his own Tarmogoyf die.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Look at him.
Have you seen the debate on the Tarmo die on stream?
No.
So it is derived information how big Tarmogoyf is. You do not have to tell your opponent how big your Goyf is, because they can figure it out for themselves. Mm-hmm. So a lot of players don't use the dice because they want their opponent to have to figure it out, to make them do the math.
Oh my.
So here we go.
Spliced Desperate Ritual, excuse me. Costing 1 less because of the Goblin Electromancer, which we now are confirmed he is playing. Mm-hmm. I hadn't seen any, but that's definitely something I would expect him to be running. So he's got 6 mana, I think. 6 red. It's going to be difficult for us to keep track of this as he's going off, but I believe that's what we're seeing here. -2, +3, up to 7. Storm is at a lot.
We'll probe you.
Yep.
Oh, he's got Deceiver, Exarch, and Twins in hand.
Yep. No mana to use them just yet.
Past in Flames.
Past in Flames. On the front side is 4. I believe it's 5 to flashback.
That is correct.
So 3 red mana available. Boom. Up to 4. And that's the 5th spell this turn. 6th spell, counting the Electromancer. And then there's 7. He's up to 5 red. Oh, can you splice it? No, you can't splice it. There's 2 more. 8.
No, it just gives it flashback, which is an alternate cost.
Yeah.
And splice, I believe, is specifically from hand.
From hand, yes. That is correct. Storm is an interesting deck. So here's down to...
Draw 2, discard 2.
That's interesting. So he's separating the graveyard specifically because...
What has...
One half of it has flashback and one half does not. Yeah.
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm not sure what his mana was, but if he had an extra red, I feel like I would have looted before I went
And
off.
he's got nothing to do here. He can flashback the bolt just because. He's probably got enough mana. 5/6. Oh, there's an artifact now. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, defense grid.
He can flashback the lightning bolt, but maybe he used all his mana actually to flashback the faithless looting. Not too sure. All he really did was make that Tarmogoyf really, really big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like that is a lot of a do nothing turn. You spent a lot of resources, but that's how Storm goes. It's you gotta weigh your odds, what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because if he had drawn a different card at any time during that sequence, he could have just won. Because Storm is not.
I'm sure he had actually more mana because of. I wasn't thinking about the Electromancer the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He probably had mana for everything.
Electromancer should reduce the flashback cost as well.
Mm-hmm. There's Probe. Still got all these sweet cards in my hand. Twin, Exarch, Cryptic, and something.
Yeah, Cryptic was there last time we saw.
That looks like True Name Nemesis, but I know it's not legal, so that's not what it is. Can't quite tell. It might be,
Exarch. Is it Remand? One of the no.
I don't think that's the modern Master's Art for Remand. I am not sure what it is.
It's Remand.
It's
It's original
Ravnica Remand. Yeah. Untap, Remand. That's probably going to do it, Joe.
Low.
Yep, there it is. All right. And Vincent Lansford takes this 2-0 over Storm. I think that decidedly is a matchup that is in favor of twin decks in general. You're on a similar clock. You're both about turn 4 decks, but the Tarmogoyf deck, the twin deck, excuse me, doesn't really have to do as much work to set up what it just has 2 cards and you just play them. And Gifts Storm has no way to interact.
Yeah, and Tarmo Twin, much like most twins, is a very interactive deck.
Yeah.
Because you're only running 4, let's say at most 4 Pestermites, 4 Deceivers, 4 Twins, maybe even the 4 Kiki Jikis.
Right.
That's 16 out of your 60.
Yeah,
that is your combo, and the rest is just support. Whereas the Storm,
it's usually like, I want to say it's like 10 cards typically. Like they've cut 2 of
they don't run
the
all of
extra
it.
pieces, and like Kiki Jiki is very rare,
Very
especially
rare.
if the deck is 3 colors.
yeah, because the double red hurts.
Oh,
Well, of course you run double red for Twin anyway. Oh, that's right. Kiki's 3.
He's 3 red. Yeah.
But Storm it's a whole list, as we mentioned before, is very tight for its combo. Now, because of that, it has the potential to go off turn 2.
Yeah. So he's got Echoing Truth, that's kind of like an answer. It's not.
Echoing Truth actually directly answers the Twin combo.
Yeah. It's kind of what you want.
Yeah.
It's not really what you want. It's good in response to the Twin being cast, but in most other situations, it's like
Echoing Truth is the instant that it returns everything with the same name.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to combat, in beginning of combat, even before declare attackers, they have to make all the infinite tokens, and then you get them all.
They still get bounced.
It
Yeah.
bounce it all.
If you do it, whether it sticks or not, it's fine. It's just like,
You're still returning those pieces to their hand.
yeah, you deal with the enchantment and the creature goes back to their hand.
Yeah.
But they still have the creature to
playing
be
it in
down.
response to the Twin will, of course, make the Twin go to the yard, which then you can kind of, once it's in the yard, it's dead.
Yes.
So that's also a very good play.
Yeah. But in any case, I don't believe we have another feature match for this round.
No, we just got confirmation that everyone is either in game 3 or finished.
Yep. So we will be signing off for now, returning very soon.
For round 2.
Round 2. That's right. Okay. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and we will be back shortly.
See you soon.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to round 2, Modern Mondays, here hosted by the Wasteland. I am Nathan Satterfield, joined by
Brad Vince Lake.
And we're going to be covering 2 of the local players here, staples who have been pillars of the community here in Atlanta for a long time. James Miller playing Living End and Philip Lauren playing Affinity. I think both players are well known for playing both of these decks, so we should see 2 very skilled pilots executing their craft.
Yep. Actually got a chance to watch James play a little bit of his last game after round 1.
Mm-hmm.
He knows his deck very well. Some very interesting cards that you normally don't see play because they have to cost at least a certain amount to not get hit by the cascade triggers.
Yeah,
So,
there's a very interesting deck building restriction that you put on yourself when you start to play a deck with a cascade into suspend spell mechanic. So obviously he can't play anything
3 or less.
less than 3,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Okay, so Blackcleave Cliffs to start it off. Looks like they're both keeping. I believe that's the promo Vault Scourge. So Phil's going to take 2 from the Phyrexian mana. See if he has any follow-up plays. Yeah, here's an Ornithopter. And a cycle at the end of turn. Architects of Will. Cyclable for a blue or black hybrid mana. One of the many cyclers that's a core mechanic of playing this deck. Monsters Carabid here again, and a forest. Most of the cyclers come from the Shards block, but there are a couple exceptions.
The Time Spiral one that cycles for 2 life.
Street Wraith.
Yeah, Street Wraith. There it
Street
is.
Wraith. It also plays the Swamp Cycler 6/3 regenerating Swamp Walk guy, whose name escapes me. But that is another card that also gets played. So here's Cranial Plating, which is a nice one from Phil. He doesn't have a whole lot of artifacts right now, but it is still pumping for 3, which is not nothing. So it looks like 19 to 19 here. Deadshot Minotaur cycled at the end of turn, and Verdant Catacombs.
Good old green-black fetch land.
Verdant is one of those words that I know because of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
It's not one of those words that you see unless you're an avid reader and you read like fantasy novels or something. It's just one of those very descriptive, specific words that is not a part of the vernacular.
Or you just like green.
Yeah, if you just love foliage
Yeah.
in general, verdant is a word you might know. I of course, not a fan of the foliage, so I didn't
No.
know that until
No.
I came into Magic.
You look at a tree and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, ew, no. You're not a salad. Get out of my face.
Wait, so do you like salad then?
Oh, salad's delicious.
Or is that mainly just the pair of your rhino flank steak?
No, I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. I don't like mixed salad in there. Here's a 1 mana divination here, Thoughtcast. He does control 4 artifacts. Glimmervoid, the utility land played by Affinity, making any color, but you must sacrifice it if you control no artifacts at your end step.
Mm-hmm.
Not a super difficult thing to have happen if you're playing Affinity. Just controlling it.
Battle here. No equip.
I think he's setting up for a kill next turn with poison.
Inkmoth. He was saving his
He
mana.
has. Oh yeah, he's got the Ravager. Okay, I was about to say he's got another 2-drop. He either has a Ravager, or he has. So here we're going to see in response the Violent Outburst, which is going to destroy. Excuse me. It's going to make Phil sacrifice the 3 artifact creatures that are out now, and so he doesn't have the opportunity to sacrifice them to modular, which is a neat little interaction that's only in this matchup because.
And then he's cycling in response.
Yeah, so he's
So
gonna pay. He's gonna
there's-
pay a bunch of life and get a bunch of guys, and
He's
then
gonna drop down
yeah, Phillips.
13.
He's gonna get to untap and swing for a lot of damage. All of those are 3 power except for the Carabid, which is 4. So that's swinging for 16.
Once again, for those who aren't familiar with it, Living End basically works by cycling, getting a lot of creatures into your yard, and then hitting one of your many Cascade creatures. And Cascade says reveal cards from top of your deck until something with less mana, and then you get to cast it for free.
Yeah.
And Living End is normally a suspend card, and which means it effectively has a CMC of 0. So anything with Cascade hits it. And Living End says all players sacrifice all of their creatures in play. And then, first you exile the creatures from your graveyard, then you sack all the creatures in play, then the cards that were in the graveyard that are exiled, then get back. You swap your...
You set aside the ones that are in play. The ones from the graveyard come into play, and the other ones are, like, placed in the graveyard. It's a weird...
Well, it's a classic swap method.
Yes.
For those of the people...
It's the old switcheroo. Looks like game 1 here is going to go to James Miller.
So yeah, that was Living End doing its thing. Because like a lot of people look at the deck and they're like, I don't get it. All these creatures are like really weird and janky, Swamp Walk and Swamp Cycle, and like this is just like a 3/4 that you can cycle for 2 life. And then it's like, well, it's not about the creatures being good. It's about having lots of them in the graveyard and then they bash in.
That's exactly right. So this is an interesting matchup, specifically because Philip sequenced his first 2-drop play. Maybe he didn't have the Ravager just yet, but typically you play the Arcbound Ravager first so that you are not open to the play that happened there where all of your guys die in response to Ravager. Because if Ravager's already on the table, it's much more difficult to win with the Living End because he can, in response to the Living End, sacrifice all of his creatures. And then, like not do anything with the counters, but it doesn't matter because they'll come back into play.
Including the Ravager.
Exactly. So you can like sort of continue to function without it doesn't effectively wrath him at all.
Yeah, Living End is no longer wrath. It's just delete all counters.
Yeah. James has an interesting sideboard here for this. I believe he's got Ingot Chewers. So I don't know how many. It's 3 or 4 because the deck has like 4 cards that it sideboards into, and they're all 3s and 4s.
Yeah. And so Ingot Chewer is special because it has good old Evoke, which is Ingot Chewer is single red as well. So he only has to pay 1 mana, much like most of his cycles, but instead of cycling a card, he's just going to send a creature from his hand to play, then immediately to the graveyard, destroy an artifact. And Ingot Chewers are what, 4/3s?
I think they're 3/3s.
Oh, 3/3s.
Yeah.
So
it's still a sizable body. It's the same size as all the other 5 mana, 6 mana creatures that he's playing. Evoke is one of those mechanics that works especially well with this sort of strategy because, Evoke is the cost you're actually paying, but it's not the one that Cascade cares about. Yeah. Cascade doesn't care about the 5 mana cost. It skips right over it.
Yeah. Plus, it's really nice because when that Ingot Chewer would come back from Living End, it is an enter the battlefield, destroy target artifact, not on cast. So he gets to take something else out.
Yep.
So maybe the cranial plating that didn't get hit.
Yeah, he may...
Usually it's a swing for lethal.
Correct. Though. He may also be bringing in some copies of Fairy Macabre. Because if Phil... I don't know what sort of sideboard strategy Phil has for this matchup, to be perfectly honest. I think he may be going for like a less swarm strategy and more all in on the Etched Champion, which is just protection from all the colors. If he can stick that guy and pair it with an Arcbound Ravager, that can present a very, very strong threat. But from James' side of the field, if he has Fairy Macabres, those will come back into play because he discards them to get the effect where he can remove 2 cards from a graveyard, I believe.
Sounds right.
I believe that's correct. And it also costs 3, so not, once again, a Nombo with the Cascade.
Right. We just got word from Jeff that James is bringing in Ingot Chewers and Dismembers.
Dismembers, okay. Yep. You do have to, like, not leave yourself naked to the old poison attacks.
Yeah, because Affinity tends to front load all of its buffs. Cranial Plating is a +X+O. It doesn't actually do anything. Yeah. So a Dismember will literally kill anything that doesn't have a million counter from Ravager.
Yeah, or like the only way Phil can get around that is the Etched Champion. Yeah. That's the only, just because it's protection from black in most circumstances, because Metalcraft is an extreme, it's an afterthought.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah. You usually have to remind them when it's not active.
Correct. Yeah. It's like one of those things that you wouldn't see. I think we had a corner case play last week where there was like, it was one of those things you take for granted, like Spell Mastery. I think the play the last time was an Exquisite Firecraft.
Yes,
was actually
it was an Exquisite Firecraft.
It was last Thursday.
He had the man in hand.
There was only 1 spell, so it didn't have Spell Mastery and therefore not uncounterable. This is like the same exact thing. Like you always just assume Etched Champion, protection from colors. Exquisite Firecraft, uncounterable. It's like the text is there, but it's not.
Yeah, and we were talking with them afterwards that you read a card is uncounterable so many times that just when you see it, you just start just thinking it's uncounterable, even though it might not.
Yeah.
It's like Phil is going to keep his 7.
I think I see Blood Moon in there.
Yeah.
That'd be very interesting. Blood Moon is... Yeah, that is definitely Blood Moon. Interesting. Turns off all of your man lands, most of your ability to cast the Thought Cast. So maybe that card came out, I would assume. It seems very difficult to be able to cast both. You have to have like a Springleaf Drum. As that leaves that as your only source of blue, I believe. Mox Opals as well, excuse me. Yeah, so you have like 8.
Living End does run a lot of fancy lands, though.
No, yeah, he does have basic forest.
He doesn't have a Cascade that is just mono red. I believe it's red black.
Demonic Dread is red black 1, and Violent Outburst is black green 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that because we did see some basics from James earlier game. Ooh, James is going to 5.
Yeah, he is mulliganed. He's mulliganing again. Hate to see it, but gives us hope for a game 3, which we want to see a game 3. Yeah, we like to see full
matches.
Full matches. Yeah. For you guys, for the sake of the audience.
Yeah, more stuff to talk about. Less weight screen.
Oh yes. Although it is a beautiful weight screen.
So pretty.
So pretty. Shouts out to Jeff for making that. His all of one day Photoshop training coming in handy.
Hey man, those YouTube videos are they do work.
Yeah, so there's a forest, but I don't know. I think he's got Copperline Gorge Forest. I don't know if the deck can operate off of that. A lot of the cyclers need black mana, but he's keeping. So Memnite, and Cranial Plating. That's a very good turn 1 for Phil. He's got the best land in the deck, which is the Darksteel Citadel. And he's got 2 more artifacts to turn on. Excuse me, he only needs 1 more. He only needs 1 more, actually.
Oh no, just Shockline.
Just a Stomping Grounds.
Yep.
So Stomping Grounds tapped. I think Phil must have drawn this Springleaf Drum. He's got another copy of Cranial Plating. Wow. So there's Springleaf. Looks like we're going to see Springleaf.
And there's a Blood Moon in Phil's hand.
Yeah. No, just Equipsies. Just casting it for extra damage. So all of his permanents are artifacts.
8 damage total?
So all of his permanents are artifacts, and he's got 6 of them. So he's got a 7 and
7
a 1
and a 1/1.
Yeah, 8 total. There's the Copper Line. Still no black mana for James. He's got multiple copies of Living in his hand too. That's not great. I think the deck only has 3 total. So
and you don't want them in hand.
No, you do not. That is a very. He's going to be able to cast a Violent Outburst, but if he doesn't set up his graveyard, he won't be able. He'll be on the casting fat creatures plan because both of the other ones, he'll have to do it the slow way where he suspends and waits.
Like, he's also on a 2-turn, if not 1-turn clock here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe Philip can cast and equip, and it's lethal because he's got another one.
Because right now a normal swing just brings him down to 4, so he's got a.
Yeah, so here's that. That makes it an 8/1. Springleaf. Oh, he's just he's just gonna
Okay.
He had second Darksteel. Okay, so he doesn't actually need to use the Springleaf. But that was an attack for 18 on turn 3, I believe. So Affinity showing its explosive draw capability here, and we are going to see a game 3. So you're welcome, people at home. Yeah. This is how we drew it up when we did.
James took that for you.
He did. He's the sacrificial lamb for your entertainment. And he's cute, too.
It's pretty cute.
Shouts out. James Miller. I don't think we're going to see any sideboarding strategy changes here. I think everything stays the same. James just looking not to mulligan to 5 again.
I believe most Magic players are looking not to mull to 5.
That's probably true.
Unless you're playing the super unlimited serum powder deck.
Mm.
Have you seen that list?
Oh yes. Let's not delve into that.
Oh.
Jeez.
Well,
It's a dangerous and dark road to walk down alone at night.
Unlimited magic.
No, yeah.
No rules magic. You don't want to run 52 serum powders?
Ooh, no, not really. That sounds awful.
4 Black Lotuses?
That sounds like
4 Labmans? Don't you love winning on turn 1? I don't
No.
understand.
I feel like that's a rules violation somewhere.
I mean, it would be...
The good old 3 minutes to shuffle up rule.
It would
used
be,
to exist.
Well, it's pretty... Oh, God. Yeah.
Definitely breaks that one.
Well, that rule doesn't exist anymore. Because, unfortunately, if you put a time restriction on how long people can shuffle...
They will take
They will
exact
use the
amount of
full
time,
amount
yep.
of time, which is
No
not...
one will, yep.
Which is something people were like, oh,
No, just do it in a timely
Just
manner. Please.
timely manner.
Yeah. Chop chop. So once again, James is looking to fill his graveyard with some of those creatures that are 2-for-1s. Deadshot Minotaur is also a really good one.
All right, so we got 3 lands for James, I believe I saw.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got 1, maybe